This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so Calix is going to start presenting on how to get internships and how to do personal branding, professional development in a few minutes. But first, we're going to thank our sponsors again. So, of course, Spark Team. If any of you are interested in entrepreneurship or starting a business, this is an amazing opportunity. You can create a local Spark Teen Pitch Fest with full support from them. And a pitch fest is where you invite a few local teen entrepreneurs to come together and pitch and like have a competition to see who has the best pitch. And then the winner will get money. And they provide you with email templates. They provide you with startup guides, personal guidance, everything you need to get started, and in the future, possibly even funding. And by hosting these local pitch fests, students will have access to the $15,000 entrepreneurship competition with a grand prize of $6,000. And they're also hosting a Spartan Accelerator, which is like a Y Combinator, uh, Y Combinator like business incubator program just for teens. Meanwhile, our next biggest sponsor is Hamilton Education. They're a really good San Diego-based test prep and education center. I believe they have had like 40 perfect SAT, ACT scores this year or in the past few years. And in fact, I and a few other Hamilton I and a few other Helyx members have actually gone to Hamilton and used them to get perfect scores on tests. They helped me get a 1590 on the SAT and a 36 on the ACT. And our other three sponsors are Singulara Genomics, Kumquat Biosciences, and Latitude Pharmaceuticals, which are all really cool companies doing a lot of cool things using like bioinformatics tools, and they're developing like new healthcare applications. Okay, so now I'm gonna hand the meeting control over to Calix. If I know how to do that.
Hello? Wait, Calix, you need to share anything on your screen? Because I can hand that over to you.
Wait, can you guys hear me first?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I have my slides on my computer.
Okay, see, I can't, Andrew, we can't give him organizer though, I don't think, because he doesn't have the organizer account. Remember how we bought 2 organizers?
No, he can. I just did it.
Oh.
Okay, Calix, cool. Now you should be able to present.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm on my phone, so I don't know. So.
Calix, do you see an option to share your... Okay, great.
Yeah, there we go.
Awesome. So I think we're all good to go.
I need to... There's this pop-up thing that I would like to get out of my face.
Calix, click the... There's like 2 arrows pointing in, and it says collapse. Click that. There should be like 2 arrows on the bar. Do you see it?
No, it's all right. I just scooted it over to the side.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So good morning, everyone, or depending on what time zone you're in. My name is Calix. I've been in Helyx Discord server for a couple weeks now, but this is a workshop and a speech that I've given at a couple other places, one of them being SRC Hacks over in February. And so I just wanted to talk about how to land a tech internship in high school. I've seen a couple other people, they've given this presentation. For example, Jeremy Rossman, co-founder of Make School, he gave this same exact presentation, but I think that it would be a better experience if I gave it myself from my own perspective, because I am a high schooler. And even though Jeremy Rossman gave this same presentation, he didn't have that same perspective because he started coding in college. So this is mainly for software engineering roles. It's a little bit different since Helyx is more based on bioinformatics, but the thing is that both include technology, and I feel like it should have some sort of correlation. So we'll just get started here. So before, I just wanted to talk a little bit about who I am, in case you're wondering. I'm a sophomore, I'm 15, and I'm homeschooled. I am currently working 4 internships. It's a bit of a workload, but since of this whole break, it makes it a little bit more manageable. I've been programming for a little bit over a year. I'm not going to go through every single one of them. And I've also competed in hackathons. I'm actually competing in this one right now, but just very, I'm not really competing super hard, and I'm not really super bent down on winning anything here. But before I attended around like 15 hackathons, and one thing that I wanted to say that I wasn't able to say in my past times when I gave this speech was that I was able to get these internships, but I had no connections with these companies. I had no one in the company that referred me. I had no affiliations. I never knew about this company before this. And again, that I've said before, these are not high school internships. I've met a lot of people that have gotten high school internships at great companies like Cisco and Intuit and Google, but these aren't high school internships. All of my colleagues, they're either college students. One of my colleagues is a student at UCSD. My other colleague is a student at Duke for CS. And a lot of my colleagues are actually adults who switched to software engineering after they majored in something like finance, or some majored in communications and things like that. And so the thing is that it's a lot more. I'm not sure how high school internships work because I've never, worked at one, and I've never worked a research internship either. The thing is that these are very hands-on, and you have to learn a lot when you're working them. So that's just a little bit about me. So I didn't add a table of contents. I just figured I'd go through them. But basically what I'm going to be talking about is I'm going to be talking about certain tools that you can brand yourself professionally that will help you gain a little bit over an edge over other applicants and other people who are applying for the same role. If you're applying for a software engineering internship and other things. And this can even apply outside of if you're trying to land an internship. And this could also apply for things outside of computer science. But for me, as a someone applying for CS internships, this is what I found that works best. So I'm just going to go through certain things that you should have, certain profiles on different social networks, or maybe a website that you should have. So I'm just going to go through these, and then I'm going to give some tips on how to get it better. So the first one is a little bit of a spoiler, but I want to talk about LinkedIn. So I put LinkedIn at the first slide because LinkedIn is incredibly important. I didn't know the importance of LinkedIn before I actually started applying a lot more. So basically, if you're not sure what LinkedIn is, which I'm sure a lot of you do know, it's a social network for industry professionals in any industry. So it's not just for CS, and it's definitely a must-have in the technology industry. In any industry, I shouldn't have put technology. It's just any industry, you should have it. And it really showcases all of your experiences and your skills. But the thing is I'll go into this later, is that it doesn't go too in depth on your skills and how good you are at them and how easily you apply them. And another thing is that your profile can be found by recruiters, and it's also a place where you can find jobs, and recruiters can find you and recruit you for their jobs. But one thing is that I'm going to be talking about this entire presentation from a high school perspective, because I'm still a high schooler as well. I've never been an adult who's had a LinkedIn profile, so I don't know if adults get recruited or not, but I know for a fact that high schoolers do not get recruited by anyone. No one's looking out to recruit a high schooler. If anyone's looking out to recruit high schoolers, I mean, not high schoolers, just anyone for maybe an internship, they're not going to choose a high schooler. They're going to choose a college student or a college graduate or someone with a CS degree. So you're not going to be recruited. So you have to take a little bit more action than just putting your profile up and making it look good. But that is the thing, you should make it look good, but not for recruiting, because you're not going to get recruited. It's the harsh truth. And so a little bit of some tips on making your LinkedIn a little bit better. If it's not, I've spent at least a couple hours each day for like around 2 to 3 weeks where I was just kind of researching how to make it a little bit more professional, make it look a little bit better. And so the first thing is the most simple, is you should have a profile picture. I've seen a lot of high schoolers, but people in general, but a lot of high schoolers specifically, they don't have profile pictures, and it just looks it looks really sketchy. It's not professional at all. We're trying to look professional on LinkedIn, and so not having a profile picture, it kind of looks like you're hiding something, like you don't want to show your face, where if you're trying to get a job, you're going to have to show your face at some point. So definitely have a profile picture, and not a profile picture of like some scenery. Make sure it has your face in it. Make sure it's like a decently good picture, and basics. Second would be your description. So I'm not talking about the biography that you put that you can write multiple paragraphs in. I'm talking about the headline. I think that's what it's called, the headline. The one sentence or the two sentences that you put right under your name. Jesus. Sorry. Anyways. But I've seen a lot of people who have headlines. I've never really seen anyone who doesn't have a headline, but it's really, really important that you have a headline because it's the first thing that people see. So when people are scrolling through LinkedIn on my network, the only things that they see when they see your profile is they see your profile picture, so have one. They see your profile banner. It's not super important to have one, but if you want to have one, it's really good. And then second would be your headline. So it's really, really important because it's part of the first impression. So first impressions in this industry are everything. Even if you provide if you build a great relationship with someone over months or maybe a year, there's still, so you always want to have that good first impression. It's hard to make a bad first impression with a headline, but it's really easy to make a good one. And so I've seen a couple different headlines, and I just wanted to talk about some of the ones that you shouldn't put. So, or at least one. I took off a couple because I thought it was a little bit out of my scope. But for high schoolers specifically, do not put your headline as student at a specific high school. Because if you put yourself as a student at a specific high school, I'm not saying you should hide yourself, that you should be in high school. You shouldn't lie that you're not in high school. But the thing is that, as I said before, and I'm going to keep repeating it over the course of this presentation, is that people are not looking to recruit high schoolers and not looking to hire high schoolers, but some people are willing to take a chance if they see how good you are. And most people don't look at high schoolers and give them a chance to prove how good they are because they automatically assume that, they're not really that good. So don't put student at high school, or don't put student at your specific school if you're still in high school. If you're in college, then that's okay because you can put your college. So I'm not saying that you should lie that you're not in high school, but try not to blast it out front like, hey, I'm in high school. You should try and give me a chance for this internship because no one's going to want to do that. Third would be your work experience. I've only seen, there's something I forgot to put here. So the first one is you should not put your imaginary self-occupation as a work experience because LinkedIn, as LinkedIn work experiences, they're supposed to be for real work experiences. And being a self-taught software engineer for the past 4 years, for the past 5 years, is not a work experience. It's better to put nothing than to put that. But then again, right after that, I didn't put this, but you should definitely put something. I'm sure everyone here has done at least one, has at least one volunteering opportunity or worked a certain job or, helped someone out for like a month or two. Just put that. Just don't put, software engineer for 4 years or researcher or self-taught researcher for 2 years or something like that. And fourth would be skills. So LinkedIn has a thing called validating skills. So you can take certain LinkedIn assessments for certain technical skills. So this doesn't apply for everything, but especially if you're in tech, they have a lot of assessments for Python, Java, all those programming languages, certain frameworks like .NET, and they have some, I think they have some for Node.js and Django. I myself have gotten validated for some of these, and they're pretty easy. You have to have a good knowledge of it, but if you fail, no one's going to see it. And if you pass, you can put it up and say, I was verified, I know what I'm talking about. And another thing is that you can also get endorsements. And if you don't know what endorsements are, is when people come to your profile, they will see a plus by right next to every single one of your skills. And what it will do is if they click on it, it will provide a little number and it will add to that number over time. And it will basically show that, okay, well, not only do I know what I'm talking about, but it also shows to other people that other people think that you know what you're talking about. So getting that number up and just asking people, hey, can you endorse me? Requesting endorsements from other people. It's really, really important. It's really, really nice to have on your LinkedIn profile. And I spent a good week, 2, 3 weeks just contacting everyone I know and just being like, hey, if you think I'm good at a certain skill, go ahead and endorse me. So the second tool that I think is very crucial for any developer to have is GitHub. So if you don't know what GitHub is, it was talked about in the opening ceremony, but GitHub is a software repository version control software. And that's just a fancy name for saying it holds your code and it can hold multiple versions of your code throughout time. And it's basically a portfolio of everything you've made, because you have to host all your code over there, unless you use something like SourceForge or something else, but no one really uses that. No one uses Bitbucket or anything. Everyone uses GitHub. So it showcases what you've done, and it doesn't necessarily show in action, but recruiters can see your code and they can see what you've been working on. But one thing is that a lot of people, I have some tips, and a lot of people don't pay attention to this. And the first one would be your commit history. So I'm actually going to head over to this guy's GitHub profile. So this is not mine. This is a random guy that I found. But this is what I'm talking about when I say commit history. So if everyone can see that, there's this bar. And I'm sure you guys have seen this bar, but never really paid attention to it. But this bar is really, really important, because it literally shows how active you are within one glance. So basically what this does is it goes day by day. GitHub tracks how many commits you've made every single day, basically how much code you've written, kind of, depending on how many times you commit each day. And basically it will log those times. And so for every single time that you have committed, it will log it on that one day, and it will say, okay, you made one contribution on this day. Or this one, he made 15 contributions on October 12th, 2019. But but the recruiters don't care about, what day you contributed on what day, but more about, have you been consistent? Like, have you been coding throughout the year? Have you been contributing over the years? And have you been working on projects constantly? Are you active? Are you not active? And so that's really, really important. And I thought I'd show that in this presentation. And another thing is that you shouldn't delete old repositories. So I know some people, if you're taking APCS, I've never taken APCS. I don't know if they have you write code and push it to GitHub. I have some friends who have taken classes and they've written code for their class and they push it to GitHub. And I know a couple of my friends, they would say, oh, I want to take that repository down, or I took that repository down because it wasn't real coding. It wasn't my project. It was just for class. And I would just like to say, don't take down those old repositories. Not only because you might want to look back on them in the future, but recruiters don't look at every single repository. It depends on how many repos you have. If you have 3, yeah, they're probably going to look at all of them. But if you have over 10, they're only going to look at the first 2 or 3. And a lot of times they may not even look at your code at all. The commit history is what they look at a lot. And so I'm just saying, don't delete your old repositories, because it also shows the amount of repositories you have. It has an effect on like how much you code, just kind of a subtle reminder to the recruiter. Okay, and then the third would be your resume. And so your resume, it lists all your experiences, your education, your project, your skills, all in one document. And so I'm hoping that a lot of you guys out there have resumes if you've applied for a job. If you haven't, it's not a big deal. But it's what employers see first. And so it's become so important. Like, I personally think that resumes are a bit outdated. They're a bit bland, depending on how you make your resume and what you make your resume with. But they're a bit bland in my opinion, but it's still a must-have for anyone in any industry. And so it's what employers see first. And so when you're applying for your job, you'll see that depending on what job listing site you're on, if you are on a job listing site, you would see that you would enter your name, your email, all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, it would be like, okay, enter your resume, whether it's from Dropbox, from Google Drive, or just a file. So that just shows how important it is, because it's literally required to apply for the job. And I'm not going to go too deep into cover letters. I'm mostly going to be talking about the resume. And there's not much to say about the resume. There's not much to talk about when it comes to the content, but I can provide some tips that I've learned throughout my many, many rejections and critiques and revisions over my resume. So really the only tip I have is to make it yourself. I've seen way too many people, they ask me on LinkedIn, or they message me on LinkedIn, or they email me and they're like, can you look over my resume? I look at their resume and I get bored just looking at it, because it's so bland. There's no color and there's absolutely nothing interesting about it. I can't even read their resume because it just looks like a Word document from early 2000s. So you want to make it yourself, but you also don't want to make it like from an auto-generated resume, because the thing is that a lot of people use those, so it looks artificial. So it's best to make it yourself, but don't make it on Microsoft Word. So a personal tip that I've made, that I've learned from some other people, is I use wireframing. I use wireframing technologies. For me, I used Adobe XD. I have some people who use Figma. I have some people who use Canva. And some other people, they use like Photoshop, or they use any other Adobe software. So make sure you make it yourself and add some color. And I'm gonna show it a example at the end. But the second one would be only make it 1 page long. So the thing about resumes is that it's a quick way for a recruiter to look at a document for 5 to 10 seconds and just say, okay, I'm going to take a deeper look into it, or I'm throwing this in the trash. Because when people put out a job listing, let's take this scenario, there's a job listing. They get they get hundreds and hundreds. From one of my employers, I was in a meeting with them a couple of weeks ago, and he was kind of talking to me about how tired he was, because that same morning, it was only, I think, 10 a.m. He got 40 new applicants that same morning. So it's a continuous process, and employers don't want to look too long at each resume because they want to go fast. And so it's actually proven.
Calix,
Yeah.
you have a question in chat.
I do. I can't see the chat. Okay.
Here, I'll just ask it. What balance, Shreya asked, what's the balance between having color, etc., and still looking professional?
Good question. And so I will actually pull up the example for this. So here's the example. So this is someone called Brittany Chang. And so as you can see, there's not much color. There's not much color. But the most important thing about this is that it's not all black and white. There's a little bit of blue. And she chose blue because if you look at her website, BrittanyChang.com, it's her theme is blue and a little bit of light green. The light green is too bright for white. And so this is what I'm talking about. Is this is actually something I modeled after my own resume. I didn't copy her resume and just change up the content. I made it myself, but this is something I modeled after. And I also used blue because the thing is that blue, it's not the fact that it's blue or that's red or that's green or any color. It's the fact that it's not boring to look at. There's a little bit of color that keeps whoever's reading it drawn in a little bit more. And having a nice font, that's important because you're going to be reading this text. You don't want it to just be like some monochrome or boring text. And so more about the content of each resume, this is why I didn't talk about resume content in the slides, is that it's more important to talk about it here. And so obviously you have their name. The name should be the biggest thing because that's the most important about their resume is you. And then here is front-end software engineer. So a lot of you may not have jobs right now. And so this is not meant to be what are you working right now, because if you don't have a job, you're going to have to leave it blank. This is more something like, this is what I want to work as. Do I want to work as a full stack developer? Do I want to work as a front-end engineer? Or do I want to work as a research intern or something? Then you put it here. Even if you don't have that role yet, you put it there. And then obviously you have your social links, you want to link it. And then here is where the bulk of the activity is at. So if you see, without even reading, there's a lot of content here. Because resumes, as you can see, they have to be 1 page long. And so it's completely fine to cram everything in there, but you have to make sure it's readable. And as you can see, this is very, very readable, even though everything is so crammed in. The font is not too small to the point where you can't read it. And so you have relevant experience. So some of you may not have this. I know on my first resume, I didn't have this. I didn't really BS it, but I really took every single volunteering experience I had up until that point to just put it here. So she has obviously had a lot of experience as an engineer. She's worked at Apple. She's worked at a couple different companies. And then here is where she put her skills. So I'm not sure what you would put depending on what role you're applying for or what you're trying to do. But in terms of her, she is a software engineer. So she put her programming languages, different libraries, different frameworks, different tools, different design tools, and things like that. So this is very important, and it's all very small because there's a lot of different things that you have to put on the resume. You can't make your skills too long. You don't want to leave too much space for this, but you do want to list everything that you're good at. And then education, projects, and interests. So I don't have an interest on my resume. I just think it's a little bit unnecessary. For projects, I think it's very good. I have my projects also on my resume, but you don't want to put all your projects. You just want to put your top 2 or 3, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then her education. So this is a bit of an iffy topic that I've been asked a little bit, and I haven't really been able to give a clear answer because I myself am not sure. Because from the perspective of a high schooler, we don't want to broadcast that, oh, we're in high school. So actually on my resume, I don't have my education either. I don't show which high school I go to. I don't put any education at all. Part of it was because of this sort of, you don't want to broadcast it, but then also because I didn't have too much space left on my resume when I was building it. So this is a little bit up to you. You can put it or you don't have to put it. It's really up to you. So coming back here. So here's the next slide. So here's about personal website. So this is a little bit more towards developers, obviously, but I really think that anyone in any industry should have a website, whether you build it yourself or you use something like Squarespace or you use something like Wix. But I will say is that if you're a developer or you're going to something with technology, it's better off that you build it yourself, because it really gives you the chance to show who you are, what you're good at, and in action. So in operation, if you're in something like communications or your relations or something like soft skilled and you're not really as technical for this role, then maybe you don't have to make it yourself. But if you're any type of developer, even if you're not a web, if you're a back-end engineer or if you're like a operating system engineer, you should still make your own website. And I'll talk about that why. The first thing is that the basis of your personal brand. So start from professional brand and all that stuff. It's the basis of your personal brand. I know, and a couple other people I know, I don't know if everyone does this, but whenever I kind of see a name and I'm interested in who this person is, I usually Google their name and hope to find their personal website. And so I do this because personal websites, they can literally hold everything about you. It's literally the one thing that can be all about you. You can put whatever you want, just talk about yourself all day long on this website because it's yours. And people come there to learn more about you. So don't worry about talking about yourself too much because that's why people are there. It allows you to showcase your skills in action. And this really only applies if you're making your website yourself. So I built my website myself. And one thing that I noticed was when I built my own website, I get to control what certain colors are. What's the theme? Where should I have a logo? Where should I put my logo? Where should I put this? What should I do with this? How should I structure this? How do I make it aesthetically pleasing? So it's really great for the whole design of your website because you can really show what you're good at and kind of subtly show your own personal brand through your colors and your styles. But another thing is that you can embed your greatest projects. And this is very, very important because, for example, on GitHub, you have all of your projects on display, but it's not interactive. There's nowhere where you can actually inline inside of GitHub interact with whatever project you have. But if you have your own personal website, you can embed it there. So it depends on what you're making. So if you made a C++ application, not much you can do there. It's barely deployable anywhere. But if you made something like a website or an app, you can link your website or app to the actual website or app, whether it's on the App Store or it's actually hosted. And I recommend hosting your projects if they're websites. And even if they're not, if they're like simple scripts that you wrote on Replit has embedding features. Or if it's a simple design that you made on CodePen has embedding features. So you can definitely embed your greatest projects. And it's very, very, very important if you're in web development. And I said this before, if you're a backend engineer, it's still important, but it's even more important if you're a web developer because you are a web developer. You're expected to build websites. So if you are expected to get hired to build websites, but you didn't even build your own website, you know, I would never hire anyone like that if I was a recruiter. And last, it's a good place for people to go to contact you because you can hold all your contact information, all your social links, all your social networks, and all like that. So a couple tips on your personal website. So first of all, don't write a novel. I've been to way too many websites that just write way too much about themselves. It's just all text. And it's true. People come to learn more about you. But from my opinion, at least, I don't go to people's websites so I can read a book. You know, I've seen people who have made websites and they literally write 10 paragraphs about themselves, about their whole biography, and it's nicely styled, but the thing is that it's just kind of like a one-page document. So it's not that you don't want to talk about yourself, but try and limit yourself, or at least try and structure the content to make it aesthetically pleasing, because people come to learn more about you, but not that they want to have a bad time. They do want to enjoy using your website. Second, emphasize impressive projects. So it depends on how many projects you have. If you have like one project, you can only show one project. But if you have 10 projects, you don't want to show 10 projects with the same emphasis. So emphasis is very important. You have to dig a little bit more into UX to really understand this. But if you give every single one of your projects, so if you have one really, really good project and then one project that's kind of like, it's not so great, but you give it the same emphasis, people who are looking at your website don't know if this project is better or this project is better. They already assume that, okay, well, you know, they both have the same emphasis, so they must be like around the same, right? And if they happen to look at your worst project first, that's even worse, because then they're kind of their expectations have lowered to the caliber of your worst project. So you want to emphasize impressive projects, and I'll talk a little bit more in the example. And third, add your own twist. Your personal website, the design, I'm talking about more about the design and the style. If you're making it yourself, it's very, very, very useful to add your own twist, because you can really show who you are through your themes and your colors. And that really only works if your personal brand is built around certain colors. I've tried to build my brand around certain colors as well. And fourth, don't make it too flashy. So you want to add your own twist, but you don't want to go overboard. I've seen a lot of websites that have tried too hard to impress. For example, some React developers I've seen are trying to use all of these different React tools, and they look cool for sure, but it's not usable at all. And I have no idea what's happening, because when I scroll down, maybe it scoots to the right, or it goes like a slideshow, and it's actually irritating for me to use. And that's the last thing you want. So I actually wanted to show my website for this. I couldn't really find anyone else's that I thought showcased all of this, especially since this is off of my own experiences. So this is my website. It's I built it around 3 or 4 months ago. I've been meaning to update it. But so this is my website. You have your name, you have a little bit of a description. You don't have to have this. I'm just gonna speed through this. So you have a biography. So as you can see, like, I wrote 2 paragraphs about myself. I would say like 1.5, but it's not a novel. So you want to make and don't worry about empty space. So if you're writing just to fill empty space because you literally have nothing else to fill your website, don't put just mountains and mountains of text. Just make your text a little bit bigger, not bigger to the point where it looks like a header, but make it bigger so it's like, okay, well, there's more space. It's even more readable. And so here's some of my stats. It's just something I like to do, my own twist, obviously. And one of my other twists is, as you can see, first of all, my theme is the same color as my PowerPoint presentation. And I took that as inspiration. And another thing is that I made it switch between dark and light mode. So if you scroll down, it automatically goes to light mode. You scroll up, it goes to certain dark mode. So it works for certain sections. So that was my personal twist. That was one of the biggest twists. And I think it worked really well because a lot of people seem to like it. And so as you scroll down, here are my projects. So here's 2 of my projects. These are my 2 that I'm most proud of. And a little bit description on these projects. And so here are the 2 emphasized ones. I like to make logos for my projects just because. And so this is how I structured it. And so, and obviously you want to link your websites here. So here's a repo. I am a web developer, so obviously I can link the actual application out. And then here are some team projects that I've worked on. It's also important to add these if you've worked on team projects. It's a really good look. And then if you can see down here are my other projects. So this is something I really want to stress here is projects are kind of like the heart of any developer. And so it's really important that you get this section down pat, because it's really important that you display your projects the right way. So I have my project, I have my main project, I have my team projects, and then I have my other projects. So I have, let's see, 8 projects plus 2, that would be 10. And now I'm not showing all 10 with the same amount of emphasis. See, I give this a lot more space to breathe. I give this the front line, and then these are kind of other if you want to check them out. So that's what I'm saying when I say don't give everything the same emphasis, because if you give everything the same emphasis, it becomes confusing for the user. So scrolling down, here's some of my skills. You should definitely have a skills page. Some people ask me, okay, well, should you rate your skills? There's some websites you could probably go out and find them, but they have their skills and then they rate them. They rate them like by percentage. They're like, okay, well, on a scale from 1 to 100%, how good I am. And then they're like 80% for this, 60% for this, 70% for this. And I did some research on that. And some people say, okay, you should have that because it shows like what you're better at more than others. But then some people say you shouldn't have that because it's a little bit like, okay, well, you're not as good as this, and you're like a little bit insecure about this, but you're better at this. And so I personally don't want it on my website, but some people may want it. And that's your own personal opinion. So here's work experience. You don't really need to have this. I decided to have it just because I wanted to have it, but this can really just be on your own LinkedIn. And then here's your past competitions. Again, you don't have to have this, but this is something that I wanted to add, my own personal twist, because I compete in hackathons. So why not display the ones that I did well in, or the ones that I actually took good initiative in? And then some of the other competitions, again, I'm not giving every single competition the same emphasis. And then future ventures, this is something, my own personal twist. This is the things that I wanted to learn. That's a bit outdated. And then let's get in touch. So here are all my social links. So that's what I'm saying by a personal website, is that it's really a great way for you to display what you're good at in action. So then there's projects. So I don't want this to drag on too long. I wasn't able to talk about projects as much as I wanted to, but projects, as I said, are a must. They are the heart and soul of any developer, and it really shows in action what you're good at. And I'm not going to go too long, but one thing I will stress is quality over quantity. If anyone here, I know Andrew is a member of Hack Club and they're in their Slack, you'll see in their project showcase channel is that people are shipping projects day after day after day, and they're always working on projects for one day, and then they kind of move on after that. And obviously there's nothing wrong, because everyone's still in high school. You know, if you want to make projects day after day, feel free. You know, you should still spend your high school years to enjoy. But if you're talking in terms of getting an internship or a job, you really want to have meaningful projects that you care about. Not just, okay, I have a project here, I work on it, it's super cool, but I never extend it past, I'm going to work on this project now because I want to work on this. You know, sometimes when you're working on big projects that take weeks or months, you want to move to a different project because you're getting sick of this project, or you don't want to work on it anymore. This one's so much more interesting, but I promise, just work on at least one project that spans a couple weeks and just work on it day after day. And I promise it will be one of the best projects that you will have, and it will actually look very, very good on your resume, on your website, and things like that. But in terms of quantity, you should still have more than one project. Like, you want to have one good project, but you don't just want to have one project. So you should have, I would recommend at least over 3 projects. It kind of shows a little bit more commitment. But remember, you should only star and emphasize 2 or 3 of them, one to 3 of them. And an example of my quality project would be a project called Anno.js. I was trying to talk a little bit more about it, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about it at the end, not right now. And last would be applying. So everything that we just talked about was literally leading up to this point of applying and actually sending in the application and waiting to hear back. And I'm not going to talk about interviews or technical screenings because that's, a little bit outside of the scope of actually landing it, but more about, well, I mean, I guess it is in the scope, but don't really have time for that. But basically, the first thing is to just apply. And this is the absolute most important thing, is because if you don't apply, you can't get the job. You can't get the job if you don't apply. Even if you don't have a resume, you don't have anything, everything you have in your brand is crappy, a person who applies is way better than someone who doesn't apply. And a second thing is that something that my dad likes to say a lot is like to fake it till you make it. And when I say fake it, is you don't want to lie. You don't want to lie. Okay, I'm in college. I have a master's. I have this. I've done this project that I don't even own, and I worked these internships before. You should hire me. But fake it as in you don't want to really showcase your weaknesses. You don't want to showcase how bad you are at this. You don't want to showcase how bad you are at that. And if you're in high school and like, okay, well, I'm in high school. I'm a sophomore. I'm a junior. I'm in high school. You should try and hire me over my candidates who are college students and college graduates and stuff like that. So you don't want to do that, but you get what I'm saying. And third, you can't get the job if you don't apply for it. Again, just apply. And here are some barriers that you'll see when you're looking at job listings. If you're using a job list, I highly recommend using job listing sites that will save you so much time instead of cold emails and cold calls to companies you don't even know. So the first one, again, actually, this is the main one, is currently in college or a college degree required when you're looking at the requirements. And I say to this is just to apply, because when I was first starting out to apply for internships, I think it was last year in around June or July, I saw these. I was like, wow, I really want an internship. I'm really inexperienced. I've only been coming for 6 months, but I really want one. And I was a bit stupid at that point. I didn't really have the skills I needed for it, but you should definitely apply if you want to, even if you'll get rejected. And the thing is that I always saw this. I always saw currently in college or college degree required, or currently in a BS degree program or in CS. And I used to care about these and be like, okay, well, I don't have a college degree, so I guess I'm going to turn away now and not apply for this. But nowadays, I literally just apply. When it says you're currently in college, I don't even look at that. If people were to ask me which job listings had, said that on the requirements, I would either say everything, because I'm pretty sure everything, or I don't know because I don't look at it. So you literally just have to apply. But if you're going to apply for these, remember, a lot of people are held back by this, which means it filters out all of the high schoolers that wanted to get internships, which means you're going to be the one high schooler out of every 40, 50 applicants that are all college students. So you need to stand out with the tips that I provided earlier. Second would be insufficient amount of experience. Either get more experience or act like you have more experience. That goes back to fake it till you make it. So act like you have more experience, talk a little bit more professionally, and really buckle down on what I talked about earlier, because it actually makes you look like you have more experience than you do. Third would be past experience. That kind of ties into what I just said. And then fourth, skills out of your range. Now, this is something you can't get out of, because if you don't have the skills to actually work the job, you can't work the job. So if you don't have the skills, either you have the skills and then, you should apply. And if you don't have the skills, I mean, you can still apply, but you should learn them before you actually apply. That's a little bit more towards developers. And finally, some advice. One thing is that it's a little bit cliche. A lot of motivational speakers say this, but you're going to fail a lot. Personally, last year was when I landed my first internship. It was in November, but I started applying around September. And in September, I applied to over 120 internships, and I got rejected or ghosted by the majority. And so 120, some people may seem like a lot, and some may seem like a little bit or like not that much. But either way, getting rejected by over 100 kind of employers when you're kind of this early in your career is very, very demoralizing. So it's going to kind of sting a little bit, but you kind of just have to throw out those applications, or else you're just going to feast the regret like, okay, well, I didn't even apply, so I would never gotten rejected. Third would be gaining your knowledge and skills. I mean, I guess depending on what you're learning, this may be a failure or maybe a success, but either way, you're going to have to learn things that they don't teach in APCS. They don't teach in APCSP. They don't teach in schools. And these are the kinds of things that are real world. And even if you look at a college degree curriculum, I haven't looked at one, but I know that a lot of it is theoretical and a lot of it is very outdated. And when you're actually working in a real industry in CS specifically, you're going to have to learn a lot of specific things, and you're going to learn a lot more soft skills than you think you're going to have to. 3 things that I've learned really, really well during my internship, and I had to learn before, was writing clean code. In internships, you're going to be reading code a lot more than you're going to be writing code. Digital communication, especially in a time right now when you're remote, you're going to have to communicate a lot over Slack. You're going to have to communicate a lot over Discord and stuff like that. So you have to be really on top of that. And then you're going to have to know the knowledge about multiple frameworks, multiple framework integration. So integrating Vue.js with Django, Node.js with Nuxt and Next and React and Angular and blah, blah, blah. So you're going to need to know those kinds of things. And if you don't know those kinds of things, you're going to have to learn it. Second, don't work an internship if you don't like it. If you are simply trying to buff up your resume or your college application, don't do it. There's so many better things that you can do with your time and your energy than working an internship just to buff up your college application. And it also, reduces the chances of someone who actually does want to work an internship to land it. So don't do it if you don't want to do it or don't even care about it. The point of an internship is to give a taste of the industry and to get your foot in the door. So if you don't even want to go through the door in the first place, why would you want to get your foot in it? Third would be build projects. And I already talked about this before. I'm not going to talk about it again. So thank you all for listening. I didn't talk too much about interviewing and stuff like that. There may be a presentation I may give in the future, but if anyone has any questions, you can just, I guess, talk on the mic or send it into the chat. And if anyone wants to connect on LinkedIn, my LinkedIn is right there, or you can just type my name into LinkedIn. And when you send a message, just say from Helyx or something, and I'll accept the invitation.
Thank you, Calix.
Yeah, thanks. We're gonna be having another one, I think. Give me a sec. We're gonna be having another session at 12 p.m. with Calix Huang, who's our sponsor, and asking him like questions about entrepreneurship and how to start up a company, because yeah, he started up Spark Team. So definitely come to that. But good job, Helyx. Thank you. And Andrew, do you have anything else to say?
Nope. Okay.
Okay.
Just make sure to be checking the schedule so you know what events are going on, because we have a lot of cool speeches today.